What's up, it's cinemashogun here, and I think today is the perfect day to have a little conversation. I saw a couple of comments on one of my videos that I put out today about Britney Spears, and I felt like this provided us a perfect opportunity to have this discussion. Don't get me wrong, I'm not angered or triggered by the comments at all. I'm not angry at the person or the people who left the comments, and I even understand where they're coming from. I just felt like this provided a great opportunity to have a conversation that I've been meaning to have with you all for a long time. But anyways, these comments were basically saying, why are you talking about stuff like this? You need to talk about stuff that's more important. And I understand where people are coming from when they say things like that and when they think that way, but let me introduce you or open your mind into thinking in a different way. Let me provide you all a reason as to why I think that even when I sit down and make a video about Britney Spears or Gypsy Rose or this actor or this actress, in my mind, in my opinion, I feel like those videos are just as important as the videos that I put out when I'm talking about World War III or some type of crazy thing the government is doing behind closed doors. Because you see, take a look at the world around you. Look at all the problems that we are facing today. A lot of people think that all of the problems that we're facing, they're all caused by politics. A lot of people think that voting this way or voting that way is going to solve all of the problems that we're facing in today's world. But when you look at these problems, it runs much deeper than politics. We are facing societal issues, cultural issues. And a lot of people have completely abandoned culture. They have completely abandoned pop culture because they think that it's not important. But you see, pop culture is way more important than politics. We're dealing with something on a more personal people level. We're not dealing with something that can be solved by voting for this guy or voting for that guy. Politics is not going to solve all of the problems. Yes, it may solve some. But when you look at these deeper issues that we're dealing with in society, when you look at these cultural issues, it runs much deeper. And the way I see it, I feel like a lot of reasonable, sane people, they've abandoned culture. They've abandoned pop culture because they say other things are more important. And you think that, and it seems that way. But culture, pop culture, it's shaping the minds and the lives of individuals all around the world. Culture and pop culture shapes the way people think and the way they view the world much more than politics. You see, folks, there's a saying that goes, politics is downstream from culture, not the other way around. Reshaping politics does not reshape culture, but reshaping culture does reshape politics. You see, sane and reasonable people, they left the culture alone because they thought they were focused on more concerning, more important things, not realizing that the culture they abandoned is what was shaping the politics. That's what was shaping the newfound mentality that's going around in a lot of people. Some may even call it, like I like to call it, the woke mind virus. When you look at Blue's Clues and you see them having transgender drag queen parades on Nick Jr. Blue's Clues, that's because we have abandoned culture. Things like that continue to happen because we abandoned culture. When you look at modern day comic books, they're no longer stories about good versus evil. They're no longer stories that teach you values about being a good, heroic person. No, it's softcore gay porn. That's because we abandoned culture. We said this isn't important. This is a distraction. And now the crazies, the radicals have creeped in and they have dominated and they have taken over every form of pop culture, every form of entertainment. So when you look at young kids these days and you don't understand why they think the way they do, it's not because of politics, it's because of the culture. I mean, look at music. Most of the most popular music in today's world is mumble rap about killing and murdering and robbing people. And there's not enough pushback. There's not enough balance because people abandoned music. So now, all of this music that's promoting this crazy wild lifestyle, that's what's being pushed on your kids 24/7. Because people said culture's not important. We need to focus on more important things. So they left the music industry behind. And now, music, modern day music about murdering and killing and doing Lord knows what, that's what's shaping the mind of young individuals today. The same goes for cartoons, comic books, like I said, and movies. When you look at Star Wars, and it's no longer about, the dark side of the Force and the light side of the Force. Now it's about pushing a feminist agenda. Everyone's got to be trans, gay, and lame. All of that stuff is happening because we abandoned culture. When you look at Hollywood and you see there's no good movies being made, that's because we abandoned culture. We thought that culture wasn't important, but the radicals, the other side, they understood the whole time that culture was important. So they hijacked the culture, and they're in control of the culture now. And we're just now realizing how important culture was, and we're fighting to regain a grasp on the culture, but it's almost too late because some people from our own side are pushing back on us, telling us it's not important. It's not important because they forgot the number one rule. That politics is downstream from culture. It's not the other way around. It never has been. It never will be. When you look at all the problems in today's world, especially here in America, these are cultural problems within our society. It's not going to be solved by voting this way or voting that way. We have to change the minds. We have to change the way people live a little bit. We have to reinstill value of human life. We have to reinstill the American dream. We have to reinstill certain values in people's minds again because they have lost those values because culture and entertainment is what taught them these values, and we're no longer teaching them these values in culture and entertainment. So now they're being indoctrinated by a bunch of wild stuff. That's why you can't look at children's books anymore. They're no longer about learning numbers and Dr. Seuss, big foot, little foot, left foot, right foot. No, it's, hey, you could be a boy or a girl. Let's teach you all of this weird gender ideology stuff. Let's teach you about sex when you're in kindergarten. That's because we abandoned culture. We even abandoned children's books. We've abandoned everything. And still, to this day, people don't realize the problem. They haven't woken up and realized what has happened. You look at things like, comic books, video games. Those are for kids. Guess what? Don't you want to have kids? Do you want your kids being shaped and molded by a bunch of radicals who are in control of our culture? Or do you want the same values that were instilled in you, instilled in them through their entertainment? When I used to sit down and watch movies like The Sandlot and The Goonies and stuff like that, it wasn't radicalizing me, turning me into a mentally ill, gender-confused freaking school shooter. No, it was teaching me how to operate better as a team. It was teaching me certain life lessons about how to be a good person, about the difference between good and evil and right and wrong. So when I sit down and I talk about stuff like Britney Spears and Gypsy Rose, it's because I understand the importance of culture. And right now, all you have is a bunch of radical weirdos that are screaming the loudest. And when your average person gets online, they go along with whatever the group think is. So when the group think is that Britney Spears acting a fool is good, our culture starts shaping, it starts molding itself around these things. Like, oh, Britney Spears dancing around, twirling in circles, naked, that's empowering to women? No, it's not. We need voices like mine calling this stuff out. Our society propping up people who killed their mom. Oh, you kill your mom and get out of prison. Now you're going to be the #1 social media celebrity. And as the rest of the world, yes, queens, and hypes this stuff up, making your kids think, oh, the easy road to success is killing your mom. And then you get out and you become a social media celebrity. I'm losing my voice ranting about this. You get out of jail and you become a social media celebrity. You don't want those messages pushed constantly on people in our society without pushback. And that's why I think it's important to call this stuff out, because we have to tackle the cultural, societal problems before the politics. I mean, politics is going to be there. Half of these politicians don't care about us. You can vote this way, you can vote that way. It's not going to change the minds and the hearts and the souls of individuals. And right now, we got a lot of wicked minds, heart and souls that are being shaped by Hollywood, that are being shaped by this culture. And we're suffering from a cultural rot because the good, sane, rational people left culture behind because they thought everything else was more important. And they forgot that culture is the most important of all. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm angry or I'm like irate or yelling at you all. I'm just really passionate about this subject because I love pop culture. I come from a very pop culture-y background. That's what brought me to YouTube. And noticing the changes in pop culture, noticing how these weird ideologies and how these people who cared nothing about comic books and movies and toys and video games, watching them come into a space that I was familiar with and totally take over and taint it with their weird, sick ideologies and, basically turn, comic books and movies and everything into indoctrination tools. I watched it play out for years, and I would scream and I would talk about it and I would point it out, and no one cared. And that was well before we were dealing with the problems that we're dealing with now in society. I saw all of this stuff playing out, and it's been playing out for over a decade. Over a decade. They purposely came in and infiltrated all forms of entertainment, from tabletop games to video games to movies to novels, everything. They crept in and they took over. As sane, rational people abandoned the culture, they came in, they took over, they understood the importance. And they've turned all of these things, all of these IPs, like Mickey Mouse, Disney, anything that you used to love growing up, they've weaponized it and they're using it against your kids right now. So when you look at something to say, oh, that's for kids, yeah, maybe it is. You don't think it's important, though, to worry about what's being taught and shown to our kids? You think that being a kid ended with you? So when people say, oh, comics are for kids, video games are for kids, yeah, and your kids are playing them. And right now, as you're watching this video, your kids are being indoctrinated by some pretty weird stuff in their manga, in their comic books, in their video games, in their card games, and whatever they do, because the culture was abandoned. And just over the past 6 or 7 months, I've started to see that people are understanding. Normies, normal people are starting to understand the importance of culture. Us nerd types, people like me who have been into comic books and anime and, Marvel and DC and Star Wars, we saw this coming. And we've been preaching about it for so long. But it's kind of at the point where it's too late. A lot of the things we grew up with, it's already destroyed. You know what I mean? There's no coming back for Star Wars and stuff like that. But I still believe that we have a chance to turn the tides if we sit down like I'm doing right now and take time to explain to people why these things are important. And I honestly believe that these things are way more important than a lot of the political stuff that goes on. I know everyone's caught up in the politics. We all pay attention to politics, but politics, like I said, it's downstream from culture. So if you want real change, it's not going to be at the ballot box. Real change comes from you. It comes from your family. It comes from you instilling certain values. It comes from you making sure that the values that you agree with are also a part of the entertainment that your family consumes. It runs deep, but it's definitely a conversation that I think needs to be had more often, because so many people look at things like, oh, Britney Spears, oh, Gypsy Rose, oh, this, oh, that, that's stupid. And I agree, it is stupid. I'd rather be focused, on talking about things that people would say, are more important. But the reality is, you can't abandon this stuff. You can't allow these irrational weirdos to be the loudest voice and to be the only voice and the most prominent voice when it comes to these type of subjects, because they dominate the culture and they have, the masses of people. They look towards these people and they think, oh, well, I guess this is okay now because this person said it's okay. This person said it's normal. This person has 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he says it's empowering to women when Britney Spears dances around naked around dog poop. So all women must do that. You got to have people pushing back. And I'm always going to be here pushing back. It's not something I set out to do, but if I can instill a little bit of common sense in a place where it's needed, I'm always going to do so if I have the time. But in the future, I would like to have a more thorough, fleshed out conversation about this topic. Right now, I'm kind of like spur of the moment, shooting from the hip like Alec Baldwin. No pun intended, or I guess it is intended, but I want to have a further discussion about this in the future. I don't want any of you all to think I'm upset, because I'm not. But I do want to know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you feel about this? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there, if you're feeling generous, you could donate to the channel via CashApp. I'll have my CashApp in the pinned comment. You could also donate via Super Thanks, or you can help the channel out for free by liking, subscribing, ringing the notification bell, all of that good stuff. But with that being said, I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.